So, if you followed our discussion so far, apart from lecture one, that was like an overview of the whole of strategic management, the discussion has followed the steps in the strategic plan. So, lecture two, we looked at the purpose of an organization, and then we discussed having vision and mission statements as well as value statements. Okay, then 3 and 4, we're looking at understanding the business environment. And that consists of the internal environment of the business as well as the external environment of the business. Okay, it is only when you've properly understood this, you have a grasp of what the vision of your company is, organization is, you know your mission, you understand your environment, i.e. the external and the internal environment, then you can go ahead to set strategic objectives. All right. So this chapter 5 is almost like a follow-up in terms of the processes you go through in developing a good strategic plan. So after a proper understanding of your environment, your strengths and weaknesses from the internal environment, the opportunities and threats from the external environment, then you can go ahead to set realistic objectives and then develop strategies that will help you to be able to achieve those objectives. So chapter 1 or lecture 5 will be on objectives. Okay. So we'll be looking at the characteristics and benefits of objectives. We'll look at financial versus strategic objectives. Yesterday, I gave a hint on this when somebody asked the question. So we'll be looking at financial versus strategic objectives. We'll look at avoid not managing by mistakes, by objectives, sorry. So if you don't manage by objectives, normally you are likely to go into some mistakes, and you want to avoid that by managing your organization through the setting of objectives. We will look at critical success factors and key performance indicators. In the course of our discussions, they have come up. So we'll look at them today. We'll look at the concept of the balanced scorecard. Then we'll look at strategy maps. We'll look at managing the balanced scorecard. And finally, we'll look at SWOT analysis. Okay, so SWOT analysis is just strengths, weaknesses against opportunities and threats of a business. So we need to understand what SWOT analysis is all about. So an objective is a statement of a specific outcome that is to be achieved. All right. So when you set an outcome, a target that you want to achieve, that is an objective. Objectives must be meaningful and clear to the people who use them and linked to realistic measures of progress. So you don't just set objectives for the fun of it. They must be meaningful, because at the end of the day, people or employees must find them meaningful in order to commit their energy and time towards achieving them. So objectives must be meaningful, and they must be linked to making realistic progress, such that as the organization keeps achieving the objectives, they should feel that they are actually moving from point 1 to point 2 or point 2 to point 3. All right. So looking at this table or tables helps us to understand, provides a summary of the characteristics and the benefits of objectives. Okay, so with the characteristics, objectives should be quantitative. All right. We just said that they should help you to be able to know whether you are making progress or not. So one key way is to try and make the objectives that you set for your organization a bit quantitative. So try and add some percentage increase or decrease depending upon the type of variable that you are looking at. All right. So they should be quantitative. Close to that, they should be measurable. At the end of the day, you want to find out the progress you are making. So once you attach some figures, quantitative, in terms of percentage increase or decrease, then you can assess what you have done compared to the objectives that you had set for yourself. They must also be realistic. Okay, that is why it is important to know your environment before you even set your objectives. You have to know your opportunities and threats. You have to know especially your strengths and weaknesses, so that when you are setting the objectives are not unrealistic. They are actually realistic because you understand your strengths and you know your weaknesses. They should be understandable, all right? I've explained that the employees that will commit their time and energy should find the objectives relevant. Okay, they should be able to understand the objectives and find them relevant. Then they should be challenging. So objectives should have this motivational element where people want to put in maximum effort in order to be able to achieve that. If they are not challenging, they will demotivate serious and hardworking employees. Okay. But challenging must go in hand with realistic. Okay. If this overly tedious or difficult, then people once again will be demotivated to work towards the attainment of those objectives. So the word is challenging, not too easy and not too difficult to achieve, but you need to work hard and strive in order to be able to meet those objectives or targets. Okay, it should be hierarchical. So you must have objectives for the operational or lower level of management. You must have objectives for the middle level, and you must have top level objectives. All right. So depending upon where you operate, there must always be objectives at the various levels. And it should be hierarchical. As the lower level people achieve the objectives, it should help middle level guys to achieve it. As middle level management or employees achieve it, then it should be able to help the top level management to be able to get the overall vision of the organization achieved. So objectives must be hierarchical, obtainable, almost like realistic. All right. You shouldn't set something that you know that you'll not be able to achieve. Then the last one, congruence among organizational units. So the objective should call for collaboration and effort on the part of the various functional areas of the business. All right. It may be the target for marketing, all right, but you need the support of, say, production to make sure that those targets are met. For example, if marketing says you want to sell 10,000 units of certain product in a particular year, yeah, production cannot be saying we can produce 5,000. Okay. By all means, production must be able to produce that 10,000 that marketing department says they want to sell for a particular year. So it must call for collaboration and all units working together for the attainment of the objectives that have been set. All right. So that these are the characteristics. Here we have the benefits of objectives. So clearly established objectives first provides directions. Okay, as an organization, even as an individual, once you have a target, an aim, an objective, it provides direction as to what you can do and what you shouldn't do, and so on and so forth. So there is direction for the organization. This is what we want to achieve for this year or in the next 5 years. And so anything that is not connected to that doesn't matter. Okay, next point says it allows for synergy. Synergy, that was what I was talking about. Synergy simply comes from coordinated effort. Okay, so 1 + 1, we are told, will be equals to 3 because of the collaboration. The collaboration comes with additional benefits, additional effort that if individuals were working as individuals or separately, they will not be able to achieve that type of results. And whenever you have an objective, people must work together, departments and units must collaborate and work together in order to achieve that particular objective. So it allows for synergistic effect. Okay. Then assist in evaluation. So the objectives are like the targets. At the end of the day, you want to compare your actual performance against the targets that you said you wanted to achieve by way of the objectives that you have set. So it can help you to know whether you are doing well or not. Objectives establish priorities. So it is clear. Once you have an objective, it tells everybody what is important to you. Okay, as an organization, if you establish objectives, all employees and stakeholders becomes mindful of what is relevant for your organization. Close to reduce uncertainty, right? We clearly know what the organization stands for, and so there is no uncertainty and doubt as to the path that the organization wants to chart. Okay. Minimize conflict. Yes, so the same idea. Okay, there's no confusion. There are no conflicts as to what the organizational members should be doing because the objectives will clearly state what everybody should be doing. So it minimizes conflict. Then stimulates exertion. So I said earlier that objectives have this motivational effect. Okay, I don't know whether you've been setting objectives or target for yourself. All right. For example, if you have the target of getting, say, an A in this course, then the way you will study may be different from somebody who doesn't really care, who just want to pass the course. Because once you have an aim or a target, there is this desire and this urge to work hard in order to be able to achieve the objective or the target that you've set for yourself. Okay. Then aid in allocation of resources. So basically, it reveals priorities as to what is important. And therefore, when we are allocating resources, we will only allocate resources to things that are important to us. And things that are important to us will be revealed, okay, in our objectives. Closely, it helps in the design of jobs. So once we know our objectives, we can then design jobs and give out assignments that will help in the attainment of the targets or the objectives that we have set. Okay, so these are the characteristics. At the right-hand side are the characteristics. Left-hand side, we have the benefits of having objectives or setting objectives in an organization. Okay. Any questions so far with the characteristics and benefits of objectives? Okay. If there are no questions, let's proceed. So we want to look at types of objectives. Types of objectives. So here I have to be clear. This is within the context of strategic management. If you leave it open, there could be several types of objectives. Okay, but within the context of strategic management, we have these two major types of objectives or classifications of objectives that strategists must pay attention to. So we have what is known as the financial objectives, and we have what is known as strategic objectives. Okay. And from their names, the explanation should be easy. So financial objectives simply seeks to achieve financial targets. All right. You want to achieve some percentage increase in profit. You want to grow your sales revenue by something. You want to increase dividends by something, earnings by share by something, and so on and so forth. That is what is known as financial objectives. They have financial connotations, financial returns. Okay, that is what these objectives seek to achieve. Then we have what is known as strategic objectives. So strategic objectives intend to position the company very well and in the midst of the competitiveness in a particular industry. So it's all about positioning your company very well, okay, in a competitive industry or environment. Side that when it comes to market share, you have a presence, okay. Yes, so as I was explaining yesterday, the strategic objectives really called for investment. And I think I was teaching on training and I think core competencies when one of you asked that particular question. Okay, so issues like training, issues like opening branches, issues like improving the quality of the products and services that you offer, issues like improving the period between the time it takes you to be able to deliver products or services to your customers. All of these things fall under what is known as strategic objectives. Okay. But if you've paid attention, these things are investments that will not lead immediately to financial returns. In fact, in the short term, they may reduce the amount of profit that you make and so on and so forth, because it calls for committing resources to achieve those particular types of objectives. Okay, so let's look at some objectives that fall under this. So include things such as larger market share. All right, so larger market share is basically like you want to get more customers. You want to be known more in that particular market than your competitors. If you take the telecommunication industry in Ghana, all right, according to the market share, now we just have our 3 or 2. So obviously, MTN has what is probably called the largest market share. Okay. And it doesn't just come in a day. It comes as a result of some of the other things that we'll be talking about. So the other example is quicker on-time delivery than rivals. All right. So when it comes to delivery of service or a particular product, you want to make an investment in such a way that you'll be quicker in delivering that particular product or service than your rivals. So you can set targets like that. And once you have targets like that, what it means is that you have to invest more in people. You have to invest more in, say, the production processes and, say, the means of distribution of your product and services. Okay. Shorter design to market times than rivals. Okay. Between the time you conceive and design a product and until the point where the product is finally produced, you want to be the quickest to be able to do that. Because most time when you delay between the time of conceptualization and when the product is finally released onto the market, if you delay, you are likely to lose out in a very competitive market, because we have what is known as first mover advantage. If your rivals are able to get a product onto the market before you, they are likely to build that brand and get customer loyalty before your product comes onto the market. So you can have an objective to have shorter design to market times than rivals. You can have an objective to have lower costs than rivals. Okay, to be able to lower your cost, you may have to invest in helping people to know how to negotiate. You may have to invest in technology, equipment, tools. You have to invest in training in order to get lower cost than your rivals. Let's look at the next one, and I think that will be where we can move on. Higher product quality than rivals. All right. So you can have an objective to have higher quality than your rivals. Obviously, that calls for investment in technology, in people, in machines, and so on and so forth. You can have an objective for wider geographic coverage than rivals, achieving technological leadership, and consistently getting new or improved products to market ahead of rivals, and so on. So the strategic objectives are like ways of positioning yourself in order to be able to get an edge over your rivals. And the key thing to note is that positioning yourself to have that edge will call for initial sacrifices and commitment. Okay. So in the language of strategic management, this objective is rather seen, strategic objectives are rather seen to be the leading indicators of financial performance or firm performance. Okay. These are like the byproducts. Once you invest in this, then you are almost guaranteed that financial objectives will be catered for. All right. But the temptation is that because this one calls for initial investment, you may only be thinking about this. And so you may not really be interested in the strategic objectives. Okay. At the personal level, I normally use you guys. So the time that you use in reading this master's program, it is possible if you are currently working, your colleagues are doing other part-time or side-time jobs or hustles to be able to make some money. Okay. But apart from that opportunity cost, you have to now come and pay fees. You have to come and look for accommodation. You have to buy books and so on and so forth because you want to upgrade your knowledge. Okay. So if you are conscious about financial objectives, just making money, you will not be thinking about this. You will not enroll onto this program because initially it costs for you letting go a lot of money and reducing whatever you may have in your bank account. Okay. But all things being equal, after you've graduated, the possibility of landing on job opportunities that can bring far more returns than the investment you've made in this program could be higher. Okay. In the era of unemployment, it's difficult to make that point. But all things being equal, we can assume that because you've invested in educating yourself and gaining knowledge in this particular area, especially oil and gas, you should be better positioned to get a job that will pay you better and therefore help you to be able to achieve your financial objectives compared to that colleague of yours that didn't want to sacrifice anything as far as school fees are concerned, buying of books are concerned, and so on and so forth. Okay. Yes. And in our various lives, we know about friends like that, right? Whilst we were schooling or something of that sort, they were actually working at some market somewhere. Some have become millionaires, others too have become far worse off. Okay. So what we have to know is that the real indicators of firm performance are the strategic objectives, but the initial investments and sacrifices may cause CEOs. Okay. Normally, when I think somebody asked the question about shareholders will not see this. All that they want is this. All right. They want to see that you are increasing, making profits, larger profit margins. What again? There is growth in revenue and earnings because they know ultimately that will lead to better payment of dividends. They are interested in their pocket. All right. And so CEOs that want to please shareholders will only be thinking about this instead of investing in this. Because if you do this, most of the time, the cash that will be available to be paid to shareholders may be small. Okay. But as I was telling you yesterday, for a good CEO, you should be able to explain, as I've just done, the relevance of meeting your strategic objectives and how that just in the near future can translate into financial objectives. Okay. Investors that are very, very knowledgeable really don't bother about the financial objectives. They are interested in the kind of expansion, the kind of technology that the company is making. So the company can be in existence for a very long time on, say, a particular stock exchange and will not be paying dividends. And yet the share prices will be going up because astute investors know that what is really, really important is the achievement of strategic objectives. The day that company decides to pay dividends, it will have covered for all the years that they kept investing and growing that particular firm or company. Okay, so these are two critical types of objectives that we have to know within the context of strategic management. Okay. So there are also CEOs or managers that want to avoid managing by objectives. So if you fail to manage by objectives as a strategist, you may be doing any of the following. You may be managing by extrapolation. So that means you adhere to the principle, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So managing by extrapolation is that you wait to fix things that are broke, right? If nothing is wrong, you don't think, you don't worry yourself. But if you have objectives will force you to think ahead whether something has gone wrong or not, okay? Similar to managing by crisis. If you don't manage by certain objectives, you'll be managing by crisis. What does that mean? Is based on the belief that the true measure of a really good strategist is the ability to solve problems. So the same idea, you wait for problems and you solve. You don't think ahead. what do I want to achieve in 3 years, in 5 years? No, that is not the issue. You just wait for problems to solve them, and then the business continues as usual. Then you could be managing by subjectives. What does that mean? It's built on the idea that there is no general plan for which way to go and what to do. Just do the best you can to accomplish what you think should be done. Okay, so you don't have any blueprints, you don't have any plan, you don't have any targets. So just do your best as you deem fit. So it's objectives are objectives, right? Subjectives means it's based on whatever. There are no standards. So just do your best. Whatever your best means, that is it. Okay, right. Then the last one is managing by hope. Very close to subjectives, based on the fact that the future is laden with great uncertainty, and that if we try and do not succeed, then we hope our second or third attempt will succeed. So managing by hope is just doing all like the best you can, hoping that one day or in a particular year, you may be successful. Okay, you don't want to hold yourself into account by having objectives that will help you to know whether you are making progress or not. You are just hoping that one day you'll blow, all right? You'll do well. Okay, let's look at these concepts too. Critical success factors and key performance indicators. And as we explain them, they have a relationship with financial objectives and financial objectives. All right, the same idea. So as we talk about them, just refresh your mind about the discussions that we just had not long ago. So the importance of balance is reflected in the difference between critical success factors and key performance indicators. Critical success factors, CSFs, refer to those factors or core business processes that primarily account for an organization's long-term success. So pay attention to long-term success. That is what CSFs will help you to do, okay? KPIs, key performance indicators, on the other hand, refer to target measures for achieving outcomes in key operational areas. So while CSFs, the main thing, aims at long-term, KPIs are interested in short-term performance targets or management, okay? So this is where you'll be investing in establishing more branches, you'll be investing in technology, you'll be investing in training your staff to improve their efficiency, their competencies, and so on and so forth. That's critical success factors. Okay, if you get them right, then there's no doubt. You don't need a prophet to tell you your company will do well. All right, but initially, calls for sacrifices, calls for pain. But for KPIs, they are the financial indicators. How much sales did we make this year? How much profit did we make? Our whatever, return on capital employed, return on investment. So they are short-term measures. At maximum, they are done annually, okay? At the end of the year, you have to be meeting your KPIs and so on and so forth. All right. So the difference is important to the distinction drawn between strategic objectives and measures, strategic objectives and measures in the balanced scorecard. So that is what I was trying to tell you, that they have a relationship with your financial objectives as well as strategic objectives that we just explained, okay? So we have what is known as the balanced scorecard, all right? So because there is the temptation is very high for CEOs to pay attention only to financial objectives. I just told you that that is what shareholders see. And that is what is probably going to lead to you getting more promotion, more whatever, bonuses being paid, perks, and so on and so forth. So there is the temptation to focus more on the KPIs and making the financial numbers or returns, all right? But in the short term, that might be okay, but in the long run, the company is likely to suffer. Once you are not positioning yourself well, it's just a matter of time. Your competitors and rivals will take over that particular business, okay, or that industry. So some scholars, Kaplan and Norton, has brought up a concept known as the balance scorecard. So from the name, balance, it seeks to avoid a situation where CEOs will only be concentrating on financial targets, all right? Or in rare cases, only on strategic objectives, and then seek to have a balance between your financial objectives or return targets as well as your strategic objectives. Okay, so a balance scorecard is a documented set of objectives and measures expressed from the point of view of 4 key areas of organizational concern called perspectives. Okay, so the balance scorecard will force managers and CEOs to look at the performance of an organization from 4 perspectives. Okay, and therefore set objectives to address all these 4 perspectives instead of just looking at the first one. All right, so that's the idea of balance scorecard. So it will force managers to have objectives that address financial perspective. So the balance scorecard will not tell you to be making losses. No. It will force a manager to think about ways to improve profit, to improve sales. But unlike the absence of the balance scorecard, where this will be enough, you don't end here. You must have objectives that address what is known as the customer perspective. Okay, what will you be doing for the customer? In terms of the quality of the products, in terms of delivery, timely delivery, and the things that we spoke about, the quicker design to market than rivals and so on and so forth. So you must have an objective that is addressing the customer perspective. You must have an objective that addresses internal processes perspective. So internal processes are like your production processes. If it is service, the procedures that you have to go through in delivering the service. There must be an objective for that. All right. So simplistically, if you were using, say, 10 steps before a product gets produced, the internal processes perspective will force you to probably set an objective to find a way to reduce it from 10 to, say, 7 or 6, all right? Probably to reduce costs and speed up the processes of getting the product to the final consumer. So this one is about the internal processes, how production activities are done. You must have an objective that addresses that. Okay. Then you have to get objectives that will deal with learning and growth perspective. So this is about your employees. There must be a target as to how you want to train your employees, how you want to develop your employees, how you want to motivate your employees to give up their best to the organization. Okay, so you must have an objective dealing with what is known as the learning and growth perspective. So the balance scorecard, as we said from the intro, it's not just about allowing CEOs and managers to focus on this. Okay, this is good, but it's a short-term measure of firm performance. If you get the below this one's wrong, it is just a matter of time that this financial perspective will begin to shrink in terms of the returns that you can make financially. Okay, is it clear? Is the balance scorecard clear? Any questions? Are you okay?
Yes, Prof. It's clear.
It's clear.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Let's move on. So yes, this is what I just explained really in a pictorial or diagrammatic form. So we have the financial perspective. The objective is to maximize financial returns to the owners of an organization's capital. All right. So I said the shareholders are normally interested in that. So it's measured by, say, return on capital employed, payments of dividends to owners, cash flow, everything financial is there. But you want to pay attention to the 3 also. Customer perspective. Why is that important? What is the objective? To sustain customer relationships. All right. as you're making the money, know that it is these guys that buys the product or the service for you to make the money. So have an objective to sustain the customer relationship. How is it measured? It's measured by customer satisfaction and delight index. So just have a survey to find out whether your customers are satisfied with the product and services that you are offering. Okay. Repeat purchase patterns. You can also use that. Do you have the same customer coming to you again and again to buy the product or service? That could give an indication of how satisfied or otherwise that customer is. Okay. Brand awareness in target segments can help you. Surveys can help you to know how people are aware of your brand or the product or service that you are offering. All right. You need to have an objective for internal processes. And here I said is the manufacturing, how things are done within the organization. Okay, the manufacturing process, the production process. What is the objective? To create a maximum value in the customer-vendor relationship. All right, so you want to provide value for your customers. You want to give something of value. And to be able to do that, your production processes or transformation processes must be top-notch. All right. How do you measure that? How do you tell whether you're achieving this? Pay attention to value stream analysis index. Yesterday, we spoke about value stream. All right. Do you remember? Under what did we talk about value stream? Lean production or lean working. Okay. We said identify the value, establish a stream, if you remember. All right. And so on and so forth. So you want to pay attention only to things that will bring value to the customer. So you can use value stream analysis index to check that. You can use value chain activities index to check that. So value chain activities will normally begin from getting raw materials, right? Then the processing of the raw materials, and then finally the distribution or the marketing aspect of the value chain. So you want to pay attention to each stage to make sure you are providing value for your customers. Okay. How are you getting quality raw materials? Are they reasonable priced? When it comes to the production, are you wasting or transformation? Do you have top-notch technology to be able to do the transformation and provide quality that your customers or consumers will appreciate, and so on and so forth? So the value chain activities will help you to improve your internal processes. All right. Then the continuous improvement index also. Yesterday also we spoke about organizational learning and the concept of continuous improvement. Always find a way to make your product or services better, okay? Because it is key in order to stay competitive in a particular industry. Then we have the last one at the bottom, learning and growth perspective. So learning and growth, I said it means you have to train, you have to develop your employees, all right? What is the objective? To motivate people and develop competencies. That is what this perspective aims at, to motivate employees and also to develop their competencies. How can you measure that, gauge that? Recruitment and retention rate can help you. The more people are leaving, then it means that probably they are not happy with the training and the development that is going on in that particular place and the motivation going on in that particular organization. Okay. You can use skills and training index. You can use employee conditions and satisfaction index to be able to tell whether your employees are happy with the learning and growth taking place in that particular organization. Okay, so this 4 makes up what is known as the balance scorecard. And I've explained to you the rationale for the scholars coming up with a balance scorecard. Okay. So it is not enough for us to know about the balance scorecard and its components. We said it has financial perspective, it has customer perspective, we have looked at internal process perspective, and we have looked at learning and growth perspective. Okay. But key to this is to establish what is known as strategy maps. Okay, so there are causes and effects. What we just looked at, there are triggers. If you get one right, it leads to the other, and the other will lead to the other, and so on and so forth. So that is what you really have to understand about these strategy maps. Okay, so it's not just learning and knowing about them disjointly, but they have relationship, they have a connection. All right, that is the idea of strategy map. So the idea of strategy map is to think strategically, to explore any possible connections and evaluate them as an interrelated whole. The direction of thinking about cause and effect influences flow first from learning and growth, and then you move to the next, and finally to financial perspective. So let me show you what we're trying to say. All right, with what the strategy maps is trying to explain to us. So most of the time, as I indicated earlier, CEOs will just be focusing on making money. All right, but the whole thing should have been reversed upside down, just as we explained with regards to you pursuing this master's program. So what really should be happening is that they should pay attention to learning and growth. Okay, what happens with learning and growth? Learning and growth will improve the competencies of employees. When the competencies of employees improves, this can be catered for. Internal processes will be done well. Okay, the transformation process, the production process will be done very well, because now you're dealing with employees that are now very competent to be able to undertake the production. All right, and this is where you'll be able to get, say, quality products. Okay, quality products with less defects, and so on and so forth. Once this is achieved and you're providing your customers with quality products and services, this then is catered for. The customer perspective is achieved. All right, because then you can serve your customers with good products, and products that may be delivered on time, and so on and so forth, and then that will make your customers satisfied. When you achieve customer satisfaction, then all things being equal, you'll be able to achieve your financial perspective or targets. Okay, so if you're a good CEO or a manager, instead of thinking about all profit or making money, you should be thinking about how to reverse the process. How do I invest in training and developing my employees to become very competent? When they become very competent, the internal process of our procedures of doing things will be done very well. That will give me quality products. That will help me to serve my customers better. And once I'm able to do that, I'm able to get customer satisfaction. And customer satisfaction means that I'll get repeat purchases, I'll get recommendations, and so on and so forth. And that then will bring me the financial targets or performance that I'm looking out for. All right. So that is the strategy maps. And it's similar to what I told you guys. Instead of right now actually looking for money, you are here investing money. In the short term, it's costly, it's expensive, but if things go normal, or things should be how they should be, after completion, you should be able to land on a job that should give you far more returns, because now you've invested in the learning and growth. Okay, you've invested in knowledge that will help you to be able to do things better than somebody who didn't enroll in this program, holding other things constant. That should help you to serve the customers better, and then you should be able to get more returns as a result of the value that you add into the organization or where you are working. All right. So that is the idea behind strategy maps. Don't just learn the components of the balance scorecard as separate entities, but they have connections. If you achieve one, it leads to the other, and it leads to the other, and it leads to finally making more financial returns to your organization. Okay. So there's some advice here as to how to manage the balance scorecard. So we are managing the balance scorecard. Kaplan and Norton proposed a strategic management process involving the balanced scorecard. This is in 4 parts. So senior level agreement on the appropriate strategic objectives and measures to achieve the organization's vision. So at the first point, you need the senior level management to agree on the strategic objectives. And don't forget, these strategic objectives and measures should be connected to the vision of the organization. All right. If you are followed, you have a vision, you remember, that's why you need to have a clear vision before you come to setting of your objectives, because the objectives must help you to be able to reach the vision. Okay. And you need the buy-in of senior level management. They should agree to that if we achieve these strategic objectives and measures, that then will lead to the attainment of the vision of the organization. The scorecard is then communicated to the rest of the organization so that incentives and rewards are aligned to the objectives and measures. Okay, so once we agree on the strategic objectives in the balanced scorecard, we need to communicate that and also make people aware that incentives and rewards will be connected to that, because already we've shown that if we achieve it, it will help the organization to achieve its vision. Okay, so we have to communicate and let people know that these are the objectives that are important to the organization, and reward and incentive schemes will be based on helping the organization to achieve those strategic objectives. Okay. The scorecard is then used as a base for deciding strategic initiatives such as projects. Okay, then, so every project the organization will then take, they'll be mindful of what they said they will do in their balanced scorecard. All right. So the strategic initiatives will base on the targets or the objectives that they have in the balanced scorecard. The final part is the provision of feedback to enable senior managers to evaluate and learn how the objectives and measures are working, and to test the assumptions against the CSFs. Okay, so we need to find out whether the assumptions that we made, okay, that if we achieve that, it will lead to this, and so on and so forth. And if we are able to establish ourselves in terms of the critical success factors, we'll be able to make our financial returns. We need to do such evaluation, okay, from time to time to make sure that the assumptions for establishing these critical success factors are not wrong, okay? You'll remember when we were talking about some other topic, I asked for examples of critical success factors in, say, telecommunication, and I think also spoke about OMCs, okay? And you mentioned certain variables, and we all agree that yes, they could serve as critical success factors. But it is also possible you could be using some measures that really are not relevant at all. And so you will have invested in those things, but because the assumptions for picking them as critical success factors were wrong, those things will not help you to be able to gain any competitive advantage. Okay, so that's what the final thing is all about. Then want to look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, the SWOT analysis. So there is some correlation. In fact, from the very onset, we said that you don't just set your objectives. It is very, very important for you to understand your environment. So that is where this is coming from, all right? So that you set realistic objectives. So you have to define your purpose first and foremost. And this purpose, we said, consists of your vision and mission statement. That is very, very important. I just told you that it is the strategic objectives then must be connected to the purpose, which is the vision that the organization is going to achieve, all right? And all of that must be based on your strategic objectives, must be based on your understanding of your external environment, the opportunities and the threats that the organization is likely to face. They must be connected to your internal environment, your strengths and your weaknesses, okay? Part of the internal environment analysis is to know about your present performance. How well are you doing? That should tell you the kind of strategy objectives you should be setting. If presently whatever you are doing is so bad, you cannot have too ambitious kind of target. So you need to know the reality. That is part of the internal environment, your strengths and your weaknesses. Part of present performance is to pay attention to the status of your current strategy. How well is it performing? Don't forget the whole of this is intended to help us to develop new strategies to achieve our strategic objectives or our objectives. Okay, so you have to know what is currently happening. Assuming you are a company already in operation, you have to also find out what is wrong with the existing strategy, the present strategy, and what can be done. Sometimes you don't have to radically change the strategy, assuming the present performance is okay. Okay, but if the present performance is not good based on your internal environmental analysis, then probably you need radically different strategies in order to achieve the objectives of the organization. So there is a connection, all right, between your purpose, the analysis of your environment, and then the setting of objectives, and finally, the determination of or settling on the type of strategies that can help you to achieve those objectives. All right. Unfortunately for you guys, as I said, we will not be able to discuss. Otherwise, after this, the subsequent topics will be about finding out the various types of strategies. Okay. If you care about that, either I meet you privately or not, I may be doing videos on them. All right, I'll be treating what do you call it? I'll be treating business level strategies. I'll be treating corporate level strategies. I'll be treating functional level strategies as well. All right, so with time, but not now. If I find time, I should be treating that. So if you have subscribed and you are interested in that, you may want to listen to the videos to get what we're talking about. So once you set the objectives, all right, you then have to develop the strategies that will help you to be able to achieve those objectives. But then the strategies will not be out of vacuum. They will be coming because you now know your purpose, you understand your external environment, you understand your internal environment, which includes your present performance. Okay. Right. Then we have the SWOT analysis again. What are we seeking to do? So the SWOT analysis is about your environment, right? The first SW is about the internal environment. That is where strengths and weaknesses are. The O and T are about your external environment. That is where opportunities and threats are likely to come from. Okay. But interestingly, there is a connection between this and the balance scorecard that we just spoke about. The balance scorecard, we said there are 4 perspectives, right? They have some correlation with your understanding of your strengths and weaknesses, as well as your opportunities and threats. If you can analyze the strengths and weaknesses and work on your strength well, you'll be able to gain some of the issues in the balance scorecard. If you pay attention to the opportunities and threats and take advantage of your opportunities, you'll be able to meet some of the targets or objectives in the balance scorecard. Okay, so that's what this one is basically saying. So realize that the balance scorecard is what is here. All right, we have learning and growth, objectives and measures, which we said should be the first thing that CEOs should actually be paying attention to. Why? Because if you do that, that will help you to build on the strengths of your employees. It's similar to, so these two are within the SW, strengths and weaknesses, the internal environment, okay? If you were to pay attention to learning and growth, that will improve your internal processes. Why? Because that will improve the competencies of your employees, and then that will help them to be able to do things better within the organization, all right? And improve your core capabilities, okay? Why? Because when you invest in learning and growth, you increase the strengths and minimize the weakness in your internal environment. All right. So you'll be able to teach your people as a result of the learning and growth and the internal process improvement to improve value creation process management. You will be able to reduce your costs of production and therefore your price. You will be able to teach them to improve the quality of the products and services that you are rendering. You'll be able to improve their people's skills and knowledge. Okay. You'll know where to locate your business, and that can serve as a source of strength. All right. So this learning and growth thing will bring about core competencies. When they improve upon their core competencies, this will improve, internal processes will improve, and that will increase the core capabilities of the organization. And this learning and growth will improve because all of these things here and internal process here will then be catered for and done well. Okay. Are we clear with this? Are we fine?
Yes, Prof.
You are sure about that? Okay. If you are clear, then this part is similar. Okay. So the next from the internal processes, we said when you do this well, you'll be able to serve your customers better because then you give them quality products and products at reasonable prices. You have people skills, you can relate with customers better and so on and so forth. All right. So this will lead to that. But to be able to ride on this last two, it is not just about your internal strengths and weaknesses. You must pay attention to the opportunities and the threats in the external environment. All right. Are there increases in demand in the type of product? The pestle thing, okay? The political, economic, the industry, all the discussions we've had about this particular environment. This will not be enough, even though it will lead to this one, but you particularly have to pay attention to this external environment. Okay, for example, you may have a very quality product. Okay, if we go back to the example of the cultural thing, example, as part of the pestle, the social environment, you may have very good product because you've invested in strengths, but you selling the product in a market where the product is not needed. Okay, maybe because of the beliefs of the people and the cultural practices of the people. You want to sell pork in, say, a geographical area where you have a lot of Muslims or people that don't like pork meat. You want to sell, I spoke about the colors of packaging, where people are celebrating and they use black. Then during that time, you want to sell things that are packaged in white, with white packages. So you need to pay attention to your external environment, i.e. your opportunities and threats, in order to take advantage of the customer objectives, in order to meet the customer objectives as well as the financial objectives. Okay. So whilst this first two aspects of the financial balance scorecard is about the internal environment, the last two, to be able to achieve them very well, will come from your understanding and appreciation of the external environment. Okay, so largely what we want to say is that there is some connection between your SWOT analysis as well as your balance scorecard. All right. If you do this well, you will be able to improve. If you achieve this target, you may be able to improve your strength, or you will be able to improve your strengths. All right. And if you achieve these targets well, then what it means is that you're taking advantage of the opportunities in your external environment. Okay. All right, in carrying out a SWOT analysis in general, the following principles should be observed. So be realistic as possible. All right, so you will determine what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. If you choose to deceive yourself, that is your own problem. Okay, and don't forget, we said it should be done by comparing yourself with those of your rivals. So if there is a rival company that can do something better than you, and yet you claim that that is your major strength, then you're deceiving yourself. So the point is that be realistic as much as possible. The thing that you claim to be an opportunity, is it really an opportunity? Or you basically want to force an opportunity where it does not exist? The same applies to the negatives. Okay, is it really your weakness, or you've not really thought through it? Is it really a threat, or if it's not? So you have to be realistic as much as possible. Distinguish where the organization is now and where it wants to be in the future. So it's also very important in your SWOT analysis, because your future is about your now. That is what this basically means. You need to know your now, your strengths and weaknesses, before you think about taking advantage of opportunities in the future. Be as specific as possible to avoid ambiguity and confusion. So be clear as to your strengths and what you know to be your weakness. Be clear as to what you know to be your opportunities and what you think to be your threats. There shouldn't be any ambiguity about that. Then keep the SWOT short and comprehensible, right? Then question several times to clarify the logic of why a factor is relevant. So that is very, very important. In strategy, there could be so many things, variables. I think we've said it. So the important thing is to keep to the key ones or the relevant ones. Otherwise, you spend your time doing so many things that may not be very, very important. So stick to your key strengths, things you consider to be key weaknesses, things you consider to be key opportunities, and things that you consider to be key threats to your organization. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? Is it clear?
Yes. No questions. So far,
Please, I want to hear you. So far, is it clear?
yes, so far.
Okay.
Yeah, clear.